All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking State Council Decree number 841, and let me tell you, this completely rewrites the playbook on international travel and immigration compliance in China. This isn't just your standard bureaucratic memo. We're talking about a fundamental shift in border management, traveler rules, and how intermediary agencies operate. Whether you're running a travel agency, practicing law, or just tracking global immigration, nailing down the exact language in this decree is absolutely crucial.
So here's a question to kick things off. What actually separates friendly advice from a hard legal restriction? When you dive into Decree 841, you quickly realize that a single legal verb can literally change your entire operational reality. We usually skim legal docs for the big picture, right? But this decree, it is all about the fine print. The difference between an official suggestion and an absolute legal mandate could be the difference between a minor airport delay and a multi-year travel ban.
Here's our roadmap for the breakdown today. We'll start by decoding the core text of Decree 841, then move into travel rules and discretionary powers. After that, we'll look at the new rules for intermediaries and overseas cooperation, outline the strict 6 red lines, and finally, we'll wrap up with enforcement, procedures, and definitions. Let's get right into it. Starting with Section 1, Decoding the Decree. Let's look at how this legal text sets the new baseline for border management.
Okay, Article 1 sets a massive new standard for compliance, taking effect on September 15, 2026. The whole goal here is to regulate exit and entry, protect legitimate rights, and, safeguard national sovereignty and security interests. By setting that 2026 enforcement date, the State Council is basically giving everyone a runway to get their paperwork totally bulletproof. Now, 2026 might sound like it's a ways off, but honestly, in the world of international legal compliance, that clock is already ticking.
Moving on to Section 2, let's unpack travel rules and this whole concept of discretion. What's the real difference between a warning and an outright ban?
This is where it gets super interesting. Articles 3, 4, and 5 show us that refusing documents or denying entry is not an automatic trigger. Instead, it's a discretionary power. The authorities have the right to, or may decide to, impose restrictions for things like using fake materials. That is a huge distinction. If someone hands over a fake invitation, the system doesn't just automatically spit out a rejection. The authorities are explicitly granted the discretion to say no. It puts the power of judgment directly in the hands of the officers on the ground.
Let's say a citizen is trying to travel to an active conflict zone. Article 2 says authorities won't just slap an absolute legal ban on their passport on day 1. Instead, they use a legally defined protocol to remind or dissuade them. For places with severe security threats, they'll advise caution. And for the absolute highest risk areas, authorities will, when necessary, dissuade or advise against the trip. Again, it highlights a vital legal difference between a strict travel ban and a strong travel warning.
But if a ban is actually decided upon, the penalty brackets are wildly different depending on citizenship. Looking at Articles 4 and 5, if a Chinese citizen fakes documents or illegally exits, they're looking at a 6-month to 3-year ban. For foreign nationals committing border offenses, the penalty bracket is significantly steeper, ranging from 1 to 5 years. This dual-track system is really a cornerstone of the whole new compliance landscape.
Now, normally, if you get hit with an exit ban, you get a written notice. The authorities have to tell you the facts, the reasons, and how you can appeal. But, and this is a massive but in Article 6, if your case involves national security or an active criminal investigation, that right to a written notification vanishes completely. The exception there is absolute.
All right, Section 3, Intermediaries and Overseas Cooperation. If you're a business in the travel or immigration space, grab a pen, because you need to pay close attention to this operational playbook.
Article 8 draws an incredibly sharp line on overseas cooperation. Domestic agencies must establish foreign partnerships, but strictly for outbound services. Meanwhile, overseas entities, they are completely prohibited from operating domestically. You can clearly see the regulatory fence they're building here. Foreign enterprises are strictly forbidden from setting up shop inside China to offer exit-entry intermediary services. It's a strict one-way street, keeping domestic operations firmly under domestic jurisdiction.
To stay compliant, Article 7 lays out a pretty brutal filing timeline. New setups have just 15 days to register. I mean, that's barely enough time to get your office Wi-Fi running. Legacy agencies, the ones already operating before the decree, have a 90-day window to get perfectly aligned. The compliance clock is ticking fast, so this isn't something you can just put off until next quarter.
Moving right into Section 4, the 6 red lines. These are the hard operational boundaries for intermediaries.
Intermediaries basically need to memorize Article 10. It spells out the 6 red lines that will literally get an agency shut down. You can't use misleading marketing, you absolutely cannot help clients fake documents, and you have a legal duty not to leak personal data or trade secrets. Plus, you can't operate outside your filed scope, and obviously organizing cross-border crime is a huge no-go. But honestly, it's that 6th point you really need to keep your eye on.
Yeah, that 6th bullet point is a classic catch-all clause. Other acts endangering national security or disrupting management order. In the legal compliance world, a catch-all means authorities don't have to predict every single creative way an agency might try to skirt the rules. If your business practice creates chaos or disrupts the normal management order, this clause gives authorities the direct legal backing to penalize you, even if your specific action wasn't named in the first 5 red lines.
Finally, Section 5. Enforcement, procedures, and definitions. Let's look at the fine print and see how these rules are actually enforced, because a law is only as strong as its penalties.
Articles 11 through 13 bring the financial sting. An individual caught faking an invite, they might get hit with a 5,000 to 10,000 RMB fine. But a rogue agency? That's a different story. If an intermediary disrupts management order and pulls in over 20,000 RMB illegally, they can be fined up to 5 times that amount. Plus, they're looking at business suspensions or even having their licenses totally revoked. The financial risk here for businesses is just astronomical.
So why did I specifically mention 5,000 RMB? Well, Article 14 builds in a really strict administrative check and balance. The exact moment a fine crosses that 5,000 RMB threshold, or if it involves confiscating illegal gains, frontline officers actually have to escalate it. It requires a decision from a higher-up, county-level public security organ. This basically prevents arbitrary, heavy-handed penalties from being handed out right at the ground level.
And to make sure these rules really have teeth, government departments can't operate in silos anymore. Article 15 legally requires immigration, public security, market regulation, and other departments to share information and coordinate. Then you have Article 17, which is the ultimate backstop. Push a violation far enough, and you aren't just dealing with administrative fines anymore. You are crossing straight over into severe criminal liability.
To ground all this, Article 18 precisely defines the playing field, leaving zero ambiguity. When the decree mentions an immigration authority having the right to decide something, they specifically mean the National Immigration Department, border checks, and county-level public security bureaus. Same goes for visa authorities. There is absolutely no guessing game here about jurisdiction.
So let's wrap this explainer up with a final thought. The difference between dissuade and ban, the discretionary power to refuse documents, the catch-all nature of those 6 red lines, these aren't just guidelines. This is your new operational reality starting September 2026. So take a really hard look at your operations. Are your current compliance protocols actually aligned with the precise text of Decree 841? Or is your business just one discretionary ruling away from a total shutdown?